And as the 2019 general elections draws closer, reports out of Nigeria indicate that no less than 40 European Union observers have arrived in the country for the polls. The election takes place as concerns rise over the suspension of the country's top judge, Chief Justice Walter Onnoghen, sparking claims that President Muhammadu Buhari had breached the constitution and was trying to manipulate the judiciary ahead of the elections. As if this is not enough, over 30,000 people fled the Nigerian town of Ran and across the border to Cameroon over the weekend amid fears of renewed attacks by militant group Boko Haram. Now, this according to the United Nations Refugee Agency earlier this week. And for more on the developments ahead of these elections, we joined via Skype by Polish-Nigerian political analyst Remi Adekoya from Sheffield in London. A very good evening to you, Remi. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, bring us up to speed about how the campaigning is unfolding ahead of the February 16 elections.
Well, with just over 2 weeks to go till election day, there's a spirited campaigning all over the country. Obviously, the two major candidates, that's President Buhari and his main rival, Mr. Atiku, are making their last-minute campaign pitches. But honestly, I have to tell you that there isn't as much excitement around the campaign this time around as there was in 2015. When the Buhari candidacy really generated a lot of buzz and a lot of excitement around the country. Right now, most Nigerian voters feel they're in between a rock and a hard place. So essentially, Buhari has not really delivered. The economy has not done well under him. But nobody really thinks Atiku is going to be, a great president. And so nobody's really excited about the Atiku presidency, for instance, or about a potential Atiku presidency.
Nigeria has accused some of the Western powers of meddling in the country's politics. Perhaps, is there any foreign meddling, if I may ask?
I wouldn't describe it as such. Obviously, removing a chief justice or suspending a chief justice just 2 weeks to an election is always going to raise alarms anywhere in the world. And some concerns were voiced by Nigeria's international partners. These are partners who, Nigeria cooperates with, seeks investments from. And they raised some issues. The opposition has also raised issues regarding the Chief Justice. So I don't see this as foreign interfering. You can't, when it's convenient, say, oh, don't interfere in internal affairs. But for instance, when you need help in tackling Boko Haram, or when you need help in restoring security to your country, you then turn to these same international partners and then ask them to interfere in your affairs and help them. So, you can have it both ways.
Well, President Buhari has repeatedly vowed to deliver a credible election, even as his All-Progressive Congress Party, the APC, and the PDP accuse each other of plotting election fraud. Will this perhaps be a free and fair election in your view?
Free, potentially. Fair, that's a big ask. Honestly speaking, Nigerian elections always involve, or up till this moment, have always involved some level of electoral fraud, okay? The major parties always, within their strongholds, inflate their votes. This happened in 2015, it happened in 2011, and it's most probably going to happen this year as well. The only question is on what scale. Is it going to happen on a very large scale, or is it going to happen on a negligible scale? That's the only, the best we can hope for is a negligible scale. To actually hope there's not going to be any fraud in Nigeria's elections, that's just wishful thinking, because that's not the way Nigerian elections work. That's the reality.
What are some of the burning issues affecting Nigerians that would sort of guide and informs who wins this time around?
Oh, I think two major issues: economy, security. The economy has generally been in a downturn since 2014. This was even before Buhari came in, when oil prices started going down in 2014, 2015. Since then, the economy has not recovered. People are really suffering economically. So this is the number one absolute major issue, the economy, economic livelihoods. Security is the second big one. There's Boko Haram. Obviously, people know about Boko Haram, but there are other security concerns in Nigeria as well, from, armed robberies, kidnapping, insecurity all over the place, banditry. So in general, people, don't feel safe. And those are the two key issues I'd think about: economics and security.
What's the issue then around the suspension of the country's judge? I mean, who is he? Why was he suspended?
Well, he was suspended he's accused of having false declaration of assets, of having put in a false declaration of assets, of not having disclosed some foreign bank accounts, which apparently he allegedly has. Okay. And so within the judiciary, there's a code of conduct bureau which was investigating him for this. They claim that he has not been cooperative in the investigation, that he's been trying to obstruct the investigation using his position as Chief Justice of the country. And so using this, using this sort of reason, or let's say excuse, President Buhari decided to suspend the Chief Justice, saying he shouldn't be fulfilling such an important function while under investigation for, false declaration of assets.
Is this not a judicial coup? Is it not a cynical violation of the principle of the separation of powers? I mean, for the opposition themselves, saying that the president has breached the constitution in suspending him.
Yes, they said so, and this definitely, if not unconstitutional, can definitely be described as extra-constitutional. And the last Chief Justice was removed in Nigeria was during the military era in 1975. So it's definitely not something which happens all the time. It's definitely something, which is rightly raising alarms. And it raises suspicions, of course, what's the reason, why do that now? As I said, the government is arguing that this Chief Justice is facing accusations of false declaration of assets and should not be in that position until he's cleared himself. So they have, of course, some arguments. But there's always the question, of course, okay, was that the real reason or was it for some other reason?
All right. Now, we also understand, Remi, that well over 30,000 people fled the town of Ran and across the border to Cameroon over the past weekend. And this is amid fears of renewed attacks by militant group Boko Haram. Is the militant group reinforcing ahead of the polls?
Honestly speaking, I don't think they are doing this just because this is the election period. When the Buhari government came in 2015, they went after Boko Haram quite strongly. And they were able to, put the group on the defensive. And the group has since been regrouping, so to say. They've had to, withdraw to some areas of, Niger, Chad, and try and regroup and come back. And it just so happens that in the past 6-8 months, they've been able to come back and start relaunching attacks and are once again a formidable force. But I don't think they're doing this to try and influence the Nigerian election, because the question would be, okay, what exactly are they trying to achieve? Do they want Buhari to look bad and lose? But then, why would they want his major rival to win, Atiku? I don't think they would see his major rival as better than Buhari. So I don't think they're doing this to sort of, purposely try to, discredit Buhari. It just so happens they've regrouped in the past 1 year and been able to relaunch attacks at this point in time.
Do you get the sense that he's trying to sow division in Nigeria? I mean, he's always been accused of dividing Nigerians along ethnic lines.
Well, that's a big question. Is he purposely trying to do that? I can't really say so. I can't really say I've heard statements from him, purposely trying to divide Nigerians along ethnic lines. What you can point to some of his appointments, that his appointments have tended to favor people from his part of the country. Again, this is not something unusual in Nigerian politics, okay? When people come in, they very often, give appointments to people from their part of the country. Has Buhari done this more than previous presidents? Perhaps, yes. We could talk about that. We could look at that. To accuse him of purposely trying to, sow divides, like use, xenophobic rhetoric or using, let's say, ethnically prejudiced rhetoric, I haven't heard that from him.
All right, Remi, thank you so much for your time.